is it?
Yeah, so just to clarify things, before I will move ahead to say what exactly RDTs are, it's important that we understand certain basics, which will enable us to appreciate what rapid diagnostic tests are, which we loosely call RDTs. So within the Ghanaian or every diagnostic industry, we have what we call testing protocols. And every test protocol is divided into two main categories, which include screening tests and then confirmatory tests. What are these two types of tests? So the screening test is a test that is used to determine the presence or absence of a disease-causing microorganism within a population. Then again, the confirmatory test is a test that is used to determine and confirm people that are supposed to have a particular disease condition. So that said, that brings us to what we call the RDT. Now, the deployment of RDTs are largely used within the screening test category, where they are used to evaluate the presence or absence of a disease condition within a population. Their developments, however, are different because of what they are intended to do. So the whole issue about what RDTs are, where they are supposed to be used, it's a question of the context. So when you go into the advanced economies, these rapid diagnostic tests are not common. Whereas when you come to low and middle income countries, of which Ghana is a part, you would see more of these things like the RDTs within the market. Yeah.
Okay, so how does it work?
Yeah, so RDTs are largely developed based on what we call the antigen antibody test. Now, what happens is that scientists and manufacturers or biotechnology companies are harnessing the body's system of fighting against infection. So every human body, when it is subjected to any foreign body, tries to get rid of that. And how it does that is by producing what we call antibodies. So it elicits some form of reactions. And these kind of reactions we call immunological reactions. These immunological reactions are largely characterized by what we call antigens and antibodies. So the antigens are supposed to be the foreign bodies, which are in our cases the pathogens or the disease-causing microorganisms. An example is the SARS-CoV-2, which is what is causing the COVID-19. Okay. So when it is presented into the body's immune system produces these antibodies to fight against this infection. So scientists then have harnessed these reactions and then put them on what we call the RDT kits by certain technologies we call the lateral flow to help in the detection of these microorganisms within a population.
Okay, so Harry, let's take a look at the advantages. I mean, even before the introduction of these RDTs, we were still having samples being taken to Noguchi and then the KCCR for testing. Why the RDT? What are the advantages?
Yeah, so RDTs, obviously, like I said in the beginning, help you to quickly determine the presence and absence of a disease-causing organism. So one, they are rapid. That is, they are easy to use. They are field-friendly. So in places where there are no laboratories, but you need to do case management, you need to identify cases, quarantine, and then control them, then rapid diagnostic tests become very important. And they help in surveillance situations. When we have disease conditions that, I mean, you need to understand what is happening within the community, it is very important that we leverage what we call the RDTs. So those are some of the advantages of using RDTs. However, I must mention that RDTs as they are, they can produce what we call false positives and false negative results. And what do I mean by that? So I'm now shifting into the negative side of the use of RDTs. Yeah, so the use of, like I mentioned, the negative sides are that it introduced what we call the false positive. And what we mean by the false positive is that the test kit will tell you that you are positive when in true sense you are not positive but negative. Then again, it also has the potential of telling you that you are negative when truly you are positive. There are circumstances that bring about such anomaly within these rapid diagnostic test kits. Some of them are largely because of the fact that the kits are expired. Others because you are supposed to use the right sample volumes. So when you look at an example, the malaria RDT kit, it tells you that you are supposed to use a particular spatula or particular structure within the kit to pick your blood sample. That is the minimum amount of sample that you are supposed to use to cause the reaction to happen. So if you do not use that, what happens is that it does not give you the right results. Then again, these reactions are not happening in vacuum. They are happening in what we call buffer systems. So if you do not use the right buffers, you don't get the right results. So these things also predispose you to getting false positive results and false negative results.
Okay, so now that we have introduced it into the system, how guaranteed are we, or how assured are we that we're going to get the right result?
Yeah, so that has been the fear of the scientific community, not only in Ghana but globally. But we would be seeing more of false positives when truly, just like I described, that the test kits will be telling you that people are positive when truly they are not positive, and it also would be telling other groups of people that they are negative when truly they are positive. So what usually is done within the diagnostic sector, particularly in medical laboratories, is that we most often, before using these diagnostic test kits or RDT kits, determine the sensitivity and specificity of this test. What do I mean by that? How is the test able to accurately tell, using minimum sample requirements, that this person truly has this disease-causing organism in him or her? So when that is done, it is used to validate the kits before they are used in mass testing. So these are some of the things that are supposed to be done from the expert point of view before they are brought into the environment or into the community for use. And places like the Food and Drugs Authority are people who are legislated to do that. Then again, but then when these kits get onto the medical laboratories that we have in the country, the medical laboratory scientists have the responsibilities to check and see that the kits they are having are truly sensitive and specific before they go ahead to use it. If you do not meet those requirements, they do not use it. So that is why we often advise that you seek expert advice before you do some of these rapid diagnostic tests. You don't just put it in the hands of anybody.
Okay, so now with the very few ones that we have in the system, especially with the one on malaria, and then I think HIV, AIDS, and all that, it is accessible by almost everybody. You can go to the pharmacy or the drugstore and get that. Would you recommend that we get this one on COVID-19 also at the pharmacy, that you can walk in and then purchase it for testing?
Yeah, obviously, with the examples we gave with the HIV test kit, the malaria test kit, even with the pregnancy test kits, right?
Exactly.
These kind of test kits, like I mentioned, we have two categories of laboratory tests, where we have the screening test and then the confirmatory test. If you want to use the RDTs, which forms part of the screening test, as a way of telling yourself that you have this disease, you need to move past doing that test once. You need to repeat it severally to confirm. If you have consistent positives after repeating your RDT, it gives you an indication that yes, you truly have it. Then you report yourself to the hospital or the health facility. Then they go ahead to do a confirmatory test for you. So usually those are some of the things, and I would say that yes, the already existing kits we have for, say, COVID-19, which people are developing, I think, yes, they are supposed to be on the market, but then they need to pass through the needed approvals, FDA approvals, before they get onto our market. for public consumption.
Very well. Harry, we'll end the conversation here. We'll call on you again when we actually need more clarification. We are grateful.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. All right, so listeners.